fans, to some fantastic Friday night action. We are here in the depths of night for the EU fans, and we got some fantastic action to bring you. Week 3 of the Smite Night regular season here. Signs of Life going up against Pendragon Playmakers. I'm Frog. I'm joined today by Kaizo. And Kaizo, this is a pretty important game. Two undefeated teams going up against each other for a spot in the next division. There's a lot on the line.
Yeah, and definitely some signs of life from both of these teams, Frog. Both of these squads, signs of life, and the Pendragon Playmakers, of course, being 2-0 in their respective games up until this point. Although it is worth noting, Frog, that the Pendragon Playmakers have not even dropped a single game in the two sets they have played so far, whereas Signs of Life, I believe, lost one in each of the two sets that they did win. So a little bit of discrepancy between the two, but still each of them 2-0 coming into this one should be a pretty good matchup.
There are just so many Signs of Life pun opportunities. I really am going to have to reel myself back. But we are ready to jump right into the action. Picks and bans on the screen for game number 1. Now, don't get me wrong, Kaizo. I've seen a lot of Season 10, right? So I feel like I have a pretty good sense of the meta. I would expect these players to have a pretty decent sense of the meta as well. But we're casting from across the pond, my friend. We're looking at these EU gamers, and for all I know, we could have an Anubis first pick here.
We could, and that might be a little bit confusing for things that we discussed previously, but it is going to instead be Freya that's at least targeted first overall, and this is pretty standard regardless of what side of the globe you're playing on, Frog. People think that Freya is, by a pretty wide margin, the best ADC you can pick right now, so doesn't tend to really see a whole lot of playtime. Same thing with the Yao Kuang and the Hebo that get taken away as well. Both of these guys have certainly proven themselves as being solo carry potential kind of gods, and that's typically the sort of star player potential that you want to get away from the enemy team if at all possible.
No, I couldn't agree more. And it is, a little bit fascinating here that Soul is banning away Soul, right? I mean, obviously, you're going to want to keep the power pick on your side, but they do opt to take away 2 of those hunters, magical hunters on their side, as well as a couple of those jungle picks, as you mentioned, Thor off the board as well. And notably, Tiamat taken away as opposed to Merlin. I think we should circle back around to that mid pick maybe a little bit later, but off the bat, they're prioritizing the supports. Maui picked first.
And the Maui pick is very interesting to me, Frog, because we recently saw a nerf to this character. He has a little bit more time on his ult. I think that it's actually not a little bit of time, if I'm not mistaken. It's something like 20 additional seconds on that ult cooldown, which is quite a long time in competitive Smite. And the question was, is this character still as strong without that landfall on such a short cooldown? And so far, the result has kind of been yes. People are still pretty highly prioritizing this pick, as you can see here, but it is largely untested still. There is a very high chance that that opinion could change going forward, but at least for now, it seems like people still think that Maui is up there with the best supports in the game.
Yeah, and it looks like they are not going to waste any time in matching that frontline capability. Sobek and Sun Wukong picked on the other side. I'm a little bit surprised at that prioritization. I mean, there's definitely some clear power picks, especially when we're talking about how aggressive and potent the jungle role can be right now, as well as not having to prioritize that support pick. But I can't argue with them prioritizing their frontline. Definitely going to be an important part of these team fights.
Yeah, the picks that they got, though, are a little unconventional. Like, I don't think of Wukong as necessarily your best available solo laner here. Anytime you see Wukong in Season 10, it's 100% a comfort pick. There isn't really a niche this character fills where he performs better than a different character perhaps would have, but he's always going to be solid because he is very safe, he clears the wave very effectively, difficult to lock down in a team fight, so it's not necessarily this is your best solo laner and that's why we're picking it here. It's more you are picking something you're comfortable with to try to hide something a little bit later in the draft. We usually see top 1, top 2 going mid lane because you have like the trifecta of your Tiamat, Merlin, and your Agni are typically considered to be the best mages right now. And when you ban one away, you're pretty much still guaranteed to get either of the other two. But I mean, this is a completely different meta, Frog, than what I've been playing. This is EU meta, so they pick Hades instead.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that side of the coin. I mean, it's definitely feeling like they're prioritizing not only different picks but also different lanes entirely up here towards the first half of the draft. Maui, Awelish, Hades locks in the top 3 for the order side, and that Agni that you were mentioning hovered by the chaos side. Have to imagine that this gets locked in. Now they have the opportunity to ban away the Merlin, potentially the Vulcan, and then we're all of a sudden maybe, you could argue 1 tier, maybe even 2 tiers down in terms of the mid laners that you're really valuing at the top of the tier list right now. But I'm almost not as worried about that for the order side because with this Awelish, it looks like they're maybe trying to gear around a slightly different play style in these fights.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty pick-oriented for SOL on the order side. With an Awilish, you aren't really looking for team fights through the early and middle stage of the game. She doesn't necessarily have the best team fight tools. I mean, you can get a landfall on a frontliner and then pull them even farther back, and that's going to look really cool, but at the same time, it's not necessarily going to change the course of a team fight. It's going to prevent a team fight from happening. Whereas the Chaos team have a very similar plan, except the characters that they have picked are much stronger at controlling a fight. They have very strong CC, very reliable CC as well coming out of this Agni. So they're really going to look to be grouping up a lot more quickly, I would think. Whereas the Order side, like I said, just playing pick-oriented, probably going to pick a good pressure solo laner here, something like a Cucullin, unless this Hades is going to be going over there, which is also pretty likely. It's going to be a very difficult fight for PP on the right side of the map if they do have to go against the Awilish Hades combo.
Bans coming through in the second phase here, and they go a completely different direction. Couple of the ADCs taken off the board for the side of the Pendragons. On the other side, taking away those junglers and looking for, is that a Loki hover, man? Like, what am I casting? Who is picking? Is it Johnny? Is it everybody's just copying Johnny over on the EU side? I mean, I haven't seen this god in season 10 yet, I think.
That is not true. We saw Velo on this one at the play-ins tournament, and he went up against a Mercury and level 3 just killed a guy. Like 100-0, fought a Mercury in the jungle and killed him with the shard prop. So I do think that Loki has proven to have at least some merit right now, but it is still a little bit cheesy, Frog. Like, make no mistake, this is still not your conventional run-of-the-mill jungler. This is a character that will thrive on miscommunication and lack of vision. So that's something that SOL are going to have to be very well aware of, is that they have to keep tabs on this jungler at all times.
Well, as these final picks come through, maybe those lack of mid bans coming back to haunt him as Merlin does get locked in last pick here, which is still mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
But as the last pick comes through for the Chaos side, they also continue. This is quite an unorthodox duo lane. Maybe the supports we've seen, in this meta before, but Danza, Chiron going up against each other. I'm not sure really anybody has the 1v1 potential in this lane.
Yeah, Chiron maybe just because of the better poke in the artillery. I think that if you get on top of a Chiron as Danzabaro, you have a decent chance of being able to box him down, but Chiron has incredible tools for making that preventing that from ever happening. So I don't think that there should be a whole lot of sparks going in the way of signs of life in that lane necessarily. But I do think that it is worth calling attention to the fact as well, like you said, that the Merlin was available because they banned Olarun and Jing Wei, last 2 bans for the Pendragon Playmakers. And I don't even necessarily think that those are the best options available. Like, Kronos was still up and they picked the Danzbar instead. You also typically see an Ishtar or perhaps a Ram in that conversation as well. So it is a little bit interesting to me to see the Danzabaro show his face once more. Kind of the same conversation with the Sun Wukong, where is it necessarily the best pick? No. Is it a very fine, very viable character that they're likely pretty confident on? I think that's much more likely here.
Well, we'll see if those bans come back to haunt them as we jump right in to game number 1 of this best of 3. Signs of Life once again trying to fight against the Playmakers for their spot in the upper division. Moving towards, have you talked about these division names yet? The Atlantis division from the Ragnarok division. I feel cool just saying that, to be honest with you. But it's definitely something to fight for. And as we just go off the starts here and take a look at these builds, what the players have opted for. Once again, my eyes go immediately back to the dual lane, and I shouldn't be surprised, but I still am surprised almost with how prevalent the auto attackers are in the meta and how much you get out of that for shredding a tank, that already it feels like Chiron's going towards this, more ability-based build with the blue stuff.
And that's pretty standard for Chiron. Like I said earlier, he's a bit more of your artillery style hunter. I often compare him to like a physical mage, perhaps, in the way that he doesn't necessarily want to build a whole lot of attack speed and auto attack you down. It's very good scaling and also very good base damage and low cooldowns, long range on all of his abilities. It is very reminiscent of a mage, and that's why you typically go more of your like Bluestone, Pendant, Transcendence, Crusher, Dominance, Heartseeker. Those kinds of big damage, low auto attack speed items typically feel pretty good on this god.
Those early wards catching out the positioning of Cartman. That's going to prevent what could have been an early gank there. So definitely good ward placement there is going to slow things down a little bit. But now we get these fights over towards the left side Harpies and in towards this middle lane. And we get to talk about this jungle matchup potentially. J-Master, though, getting caught, will use the Feather Step, but a great peel coming out of Cryonic will save the jungler. And I was just about to talk about these junglers and the early potential. Loki showing off his damage already.
And a Willis should have pretty good trade into a Loki early on, not necessarily racing him to the bottom, but just being able to get good damage off here, as we'll see a little bit more scrapping in the mid lane. Dominator wants a bit more, but doesn't look like he'll be able to find it. But Frog, J-Master should have been level 3 and is using it right now.
He jumps in, though, gets the stun off, and the Flame Wave takes down for first blood. Dominator finds that one, and that's going to gain them all the pressure in the mid lane, looking for these side camps as well. I'm shocked that J-Master steps up there.
Yeah, and not only steps up, but jumps in head first, knowing that Dominator had the dash available. Shard is on cooldown for Cartman, so wasn't a factor in that one, but still no Shard for J-Master there to give a bit of additional lifesteal and damage. It's just a questionable play all around, and it's not the first one that I've seen J-Master make so far. I was kind of keeping an eye on them in the early farming rotation, because typically when you play jungle in this current meta, you do your speed buff alongside the rest of the camps, you go mid, split a wave there, do your other speed buff, because remember, junglers get 2 of those now, and then that farming rotation makes you hit level 3, at which point you can go over to the dual lane, look for a gank there, or potentially get a little bit more aggressive in mid. J-Master was level 2 somehow after doing his back left speed buff, which makes it so that was inherently a disadvantageous fight from the offset, because Cartman, alternatively, was level 3. So the fact that they were willing to play aggressive at all was shocking to me, much less the fact that J-Master jumps in. I don't know, Frog. It's just a head-scratcher all the way around.
Yeah, and it gives Cartman the pressure on this map and a little bit of a lead, too. Hits level 5 first, and it's going to continue looking for one of these fights already onto the ADC. Peter's under a little bit of pressure. Good blink in from the support's going to help him out, but these health bars are not falling fast at all. Good beads there from Peters. We'll keep him alive under the tier 1. And all the while, Dominator gets left alone in mid, and J-Master gets his revenge.
Yeah, and we didn't get to see what took place in mid there. Got to assume that perhaps Dominator looking to play more aggressive on Cryonic, considering the low health bar, low mana bar, and a whole lot of resources to work with, and that's when Agni can really thrive as a lane bully. But the left-hand side just, I don't know, Cartman clearly thought that there was something there, but Peter's full HP, very close to the tower, had the support there. Maybe just an overestimation of the damage, considering Cartman doesn't have any tier of the item finished, really. Still has just the Morning Star there. Not a whole lot of damage to work with, and pretty much showed it there. They did at least get the beads off of Danzabaru, which is pretty important here, and might come up in this fight.
Rocket charge will force in on a Vanatix, but a great beads dodges it the ultimate from J Master, so does not end up using that gravity surge. And J Master may be sticking around a little bit longer here to see if he can catch the ADC sleeping, but that beads gets a ton of value, and now both of these ADCs are a little bit more susceptible.
Yeah, we should be seeing a pretty good amount of action over on the left-hand side, but it's actually the right-hand side. Everybody's grouping around this Hades and Wukong. They got so many people here.
Yeah, the ultimate comes through. Great beads and a good dash away, but the CC is too strong, and it will be the kill on... Is that Miltiades? Do you say the T? Is it Miltiades? I don't... The Hades falls down.
We'll just call him Milt. And Milt took a spill there, Frog. A little bit of spilled Milt never hurt nobody.
Oh, God.
Wasn't that good? I feel pretty spooky Mars for saying that one. But on the back end of taking down Milt, they also get the ever-critical blue buff invade, which isn't as impactful as it has been in seasons past, considering that one no longer gives cooldown. But, Frog, there's so much fighting!
Yeah, Cryonic tries to flicker away, but will just go into the rainfire on the other side, though. Good landfall brings him under the tower. A huge play from Panos takes the mid laner in trade, and now it's a jungle 1-for-1 in the back. A good blink in will help out with the support coming in for the peel. Both of these junglers falling incredibly low, and the shell makes the difference. J Master takes down the 2v2, finds the kill, and it may be the chase as Kabani finds the trade as well. The action just will not stop.
Milt has spilled, but he's on the way back in. Won't be able to track down the Sobek, though, who exits stage north and will instead be able to only watch as his jungler ends up falling there. An excellent shell, you're absolutely right, Frog, from Panos on the Maui. Keeps alive J Master just barely long enough to secure that kill onto Loki. We love to call out good support gameplay. Not a mechanically intensive play to use an AoE around you, but certainly an incredibly impactful one there. That
and he gets the mid as well.
Yeah, he did. That could have been much, much worse, but instead manages to land that landfall. Agni had beads down for another 20 seconds or so, no dash available. And we talked about that landfall on the desk, man. It is so strong.
Oh my goodness, another flicker forced under the tower. Cryonic doing a good job holding on to that safety ability as J Master loops in just to force the dash on the other mid laner, and it will be just a little bit of a wash. But as these teams head towards this Gold Fury side of the map, the pluck's gonna come through, and J Master could be in a rough spot, forced to jump away, leaves his mid laner alone, and will lose out on the kill because of it. But a good trade on the back end, and both junglers come away with one. We'll see if Flake Slayer continues the chase, but I am not loving my positioning here if I'm J Master, and he just has to do the bare minimum to get out here as the ADCs have rotated over as well. The Centaurus finds the shot through the wall and takes down yet another kill. 2 down now for Signs of Life, and a huge landfall slows everything down. Panos just cannot stop making plays.
He doesn't miss, bro. He just cannot miss on this Maui. That's the potential you need out of this #1 overall pick in the draft.
Keeping on with the action, you do see a little bit more on the left-hand side as Vanatix trying to take this fight against Peters with no mana. But, I mean, the way that that fight shakes out, I feel like we've seen that a couple of times now, where both junglers have ended up diving. We've gotten to see them trade out kills. Like, they're almost always getting the kills, but it's not really leading to anything.
Yeah, they're not really getting the stuff after the stuff. They've got the stuff on the front end, but missing the other half of that stuff after you get the kills. And I don't know, Frog, J Master has been looking so good on this Awilish that I feel like it's only a matter of time. You often see players hold on to that Gravity Surge cooldown, hunting for maybe a pull off of a CC or something. Maybe you go for the big play off the landfall, but J Master's just perfectly content to use it instead just for the auto attack stim, the knockback immunity, all of which very impactful when you're trying to hunt down a kill against something like a Sobek.
will be able to dash away there. Flake Slayer takes away that purple buff. Is this is the first?
Okay,
Ooh,
well,
just a little bit off the
never
mark
mind.
with the gravity surge, losing that pick opportunity. But you see, both teams no stranger now towards this 10-minute mark of grouping up on this left-hand side. And no surprise on that. The Gold Fury now is sort of in the range of we can start to think about taking this objective, especially with crit soon to come online for Peters, who's been quiet over here on this left-hand side. But as we sort of see these fights trickle down and continue, especially as these mid laners both now with 2 and 3 deaths on the board, it's really been heavily focused around this mid lane, and both side lanes has just gotten to farm all game, it feels like.
Well, gotten to farm is a bit of an overstatement for Milt over here in the solo lane. Remember, he took that spill earlier on, and it hasn't looked great for him so far, but he's getting some help here. Hades ult will not get the Wukong. I don't think he's making it out of this one, Frog.
Yeah, does have to find a route out with the Somersault Cloud. Blink in from Cartman, though, and immediately tries to force the engagement onto the opposing jungler. J-Master turns his focus onto the Loki, but will get trapped in the damage and immediately falls for nothing. He's not able to finish the kill. The land falls off the mark as well. The rotation will come through onto Panos and try and chase down Milt here. They'll get a 2 for none. They won't even get the Sun Wukong.
And this is kind of where I was going, Frog, is it looks a lot like Signs of Life are forcing all of these issues, making these fights happen. They're the ones on the initial aggress, but as soon as the rest of Pendragon shows up, every time it's been kind of going toward the Chaos side. They're going to grab this Pyromancer here as well, which is the stuff after the stuff we were looking for. And they've also got a 3-0-2 Sun Wukong waiting in the wings for the rotation. And it hasn't come up just yet, other than just that fight that we saw in right lane where he barely manages to sustain long enough to make it through that engagement. But once you rotate this guy over with this 3-level lead that he now has on Milt, that's going to be a very difficult Gold Fury fight for Signs of Life to try to even defend.
Peters under some pressure here on this left-hand side. Will find himself in a 1v2, and the bead's not available for that pluck, so he'll go back towards the tower, but look for the rotation. Cryonic here on the damage, shreds down the ADC, forces both relics, and Vanatix falls first. They're turning it on its head. Found one, looking for the second, but it may be a Gold Fury window now with 4 of them over towards this left-hand side. Everybody backing off, though. It's just J-Master who is available to continue this engagement. I don't think he'll be able to take down the support.
And make no mistake, though, he's going to try for it. He has played aggressive all game long and not planning on stopping now, but does have Cartman on the rotation, Frog.
Oh, no. The ultimate comes through. J-Master does his best, but is caught sliping on towards that purple buff and just not able to get out of there. Maybe another fight brewing, though. Good CC coming from Panos keeps Cartman in one spot, and these autos just shred through the health bar at this point in the game. Now a rotation over from Dominator. Cryonic on the other side of the wall. They're chasing down these kills, and Peters is bound to fall. The solo laner takes the kill, and they'll find 2 into the ground, and now they're the ones in the position to take this down. But Cartman oversteps his bounds, forces the beads, and may force the Centaurus as it does take the ultimate away, but now they're on the Gold Fury.
Yeah, damage has certainly been done, though, Frog, as Wukong makes a big rotation, gets the kill. Hades still in right lane, so it will just be Panos jumping in to try to steal here, and it doesn't look good for him.
Yeah, does not take away that objective. J-Master was the focus initially, but instead Panos will be taken down for his troubles. Pendragon Playmakers, man, they are looking clean on those rotations.
Yeah, they haven't dropped a game and not looking to do so anytime soon as they get the pluck onto Cryonic. No beads available for the Merlin will fall even underneath the tower, giving another kill over to Dominator on the Agni. And with a 4,000 gold lead, Frog, with a 4-0-3 Sun Wukong, Hades still has a lot more time left in the oven before that's really going to be a significant threat in these team fights. It is not looking good for Signs of Life. We're seeing very few signs of life, one might even argue.
Well, I can see why they haven't dropped a game if they're continuing to look this aggressive. I mean, for all of the action that we've seen, they're still doubling the kills. 4,000 gold lead, as you mentioned, and now and maybe yet another fight here. Panos being chased by 3 different members here. Vanitix just has to wait for his team to come through, and Peter's will should be taken down, but it's Vanitix who does finally find the ADC, and now Panos stuck between a rock and a hard place. 4 members specifically onto this support, and they'll find 2 for free in the left side.
And that just feels awful if you're Signs of Life there, where you just lost the big objective fight, so you go back to farming, understanding you're behind, you need levels, you need farm, and then there's 4 dudes in a dark alley waiting for you on the way back to lane. And Pendragon Playmakers are certainly accustomed to waiting in those alleys for their opportunities. It has been a lot of setting the table for Signs of Life to play aggressive and then jumping on them when they try to. Pendragon Playmakers have kind of just played the long game, played very slow, waited for the other team to come to them, and it's worked out so far, but I don't know what they're really going to have to give up in order to allow Signs of Life back into this one. Maybe you just take your foot off the gas and then give up a Pyromancer along the way, but at least for the time being, Frog, they look very, very confident.
And we're not at the point in the game where it's a 99% or anything close to that yet. In fact, hold that thought, Cryonic gets dove in on, but the soul gem heal keeps him high enough to survive that one, and he's able to turn it around onto Cartman. And now J-Master has found himself against the ADC in their backline. It's the 2 carries sticking together here, as well as the tanks rotating over, forcing a 4v3, and it's the ADC and jungler just so aggressive up in this mid lane from behind. J-Master really trying to push the buttons, finds the jump over the wall right into Kabani, but it's Kabani who's turned around on, and they'll at least find the 1-for-1 as things start to turn around. Still looking for the aggression is Panos, but the team is hesitant on jumping back in. A late beads and a switch around of the focus. Dominator takes down the soul laner, almost finds Peters. It's just such a scrappy fight.
And Agni's still looking for more dashes into the tower. Won't be able to find more action on the front.
He finds the wrong leaf under the tier 1, but it's a continuous dive. Cartman's come back from the grave and is looking for the mid laner. A good pluck will take Cryonic into the minion wave, but his team has backed off, and it's not enough. No! The Centaurus from Vanitix finds one.
Okay!
With the second ability, and that'll set up for the objective.
Masterful shot, masterfully lands one more as Pendragon Playmakers get the Pyromancer and the team fight. And Frog, you said it yourself, Dominator is on the back end of these fights every single time, scrapping with the solo laners, scrapping with the jungler, does not mind being at melee range and looking for these incredibly aggressive engagements. And that's why I think this Agni is so strong. It's so good at the long-range CC control poke game, but also you get on top of him and you're going to take a whole bunch of damage for your trouble.
J-Master gets away with murder, just takes down Cartman for free, and he wants more. He may be looking for the jump here. Dominator has the dash, will find the stun. Good self-peel at least, but his support's a little bit far away, and he'll lose the life because of it. J-Master creates something out of nothing, and Signs of Life are showing up.
Yeah, a little bit of magic there on the back end from J-Master. That's a very easy time for you to get very disheartened and a little sad. But hang on, Peters is not feeling the same way. He's going in.
Forces the Aegis, and it will be a turnaround on the dash, but Vanitix feeling good. Hits 1, hits 2. The masterful shot will be there, but J-Master is here to help clean it up, and they find 3. It's just out of nowhere. Pendragon Playmakers get caught sleeping and lose these picks, it feels like, for no reason.
Yeah, I think that you're pretty much correct there. There is no reason for these kills to be going the way of Signs of Life, but they are certainly finding them from basically nothing, generated from thin air and generated very specifically by J-Master on this Awilla. She has played so well on this one. We saw, maybe a missed Awilla ult along the way, but that's nothing to write home about when you're getting so much good impact here, and we'll see another fight in right lane as Milt is taking the 1v2.
He's doing his best to keep alive. He might might turn things around, but it will just barely be the damage from Kabani that cleans that one up. A successful gank in there gets Pendragon something back as they do manage to find their way back towards the base. But as things slow down, we haven't gotten a lot of slow time in this game. So I'm gonna take what we have. We'll take a look at these graphs. Already you can see signs of life fighting back into it just a little bit. Those peaks in the graph, right? This one's not over yet. And it could not be said better that those last couple of fights, just those picks that they're able to find, that's exactly the type of things we're looking for them to get back into this game. But ultimately, it's going to have to be a little bit more than that as the Centaurus comes out, maybe banking on Cartman finding the kill over here. They're trying to loop around on him. I'm not sure they're going to be successful. Things do slow down there. But I was thinking about, we got to start thinking about these fights. They haven't dove the Fire Giant. They haven't even come close to it quite yet, but they will just continue to look for these picks, and they'll find one on a Cryonic. It's just action after action.
Yeah, J-Master will get the Will Shield beads used, though, and Panos is back in here.
Yeah, he finds a double stun there as the Soul Laners have rotated over, but Milt has no opportunity to play the video game. He will fall as well. 2 down on the Order side, and they're diving the tier 2 tower. All 5 make it 6 members with the clone coming out as well, and J-Master will fall as a double kill comes through with the Flame Wave for Dominator, and it'll be 4 that fall. This may be a Phoenix, and it surely will be with the support falling. They may even go for the game. It could be. It's only going to be Cryonic alive in the base. They do decide to back up. At the very least, they get the bird.
And what an impressive fight from the Pendragon Playmakers there, knowing that there's nobody even close to where Cryonic is standing under the tier 1 tower, and that's kind of a mage syndrome where it feels like you should be safe in your structures and not understanding that they're just going to dive the structures. And Flake Slayer had no problems with that at all. 1-0-19 on this Sobek, has been a part of all but 5 of the kills up until this point. And then the collapse from the rest of the Pendragon Playmakers. You said Milt did not get to play the video game. I think you couldn't have put that any better. He is full damage Hades, and they just jumped on top of him and assassinated him before he could get a single ability cast off. And then the snowball forward with Kabani just using the decoy to tank down the tower, make sure that nobody was taking way too much damage for trying to go for that dive. It is so impressive the way that the Pendragon Playmakers fight all as one unit if they're grouped up. We've seen Signs of Life spread the map pretty well, look for these picks, get some good isolated opportunities for a fight with a numbers advantage, but every time the Pendragon Playmakers have had the numbers in their favor, it's been looking pretty good for them.
Well, they've got the numbers on this right-hand side, and Milt may be the one under pressure here. Will be some peel coming through from Cryonic if they can try to keep him alive, but it will not be enough. Wasting the ultimate, though, to take down, well, I say wasting. It's a kill, right? Take the kill. But Panos may be the second to fall as well. Good pluck back, and Dominator takes that one on a killing spree as the rest of the team continues to force down this right-hand side, and they may find 3 if Cartman has anything to say about it. Good blink behind. Almost tries to knock him up, looking for the 1v1. Has to find the auto, though, for the feather step. Cartman dancing back and forth will try his best to jump in place. It's off the mark. It is so hard to watch, but J-Master takes the spill, opens up the Fire Giant window for the Pendragon Playmakers.
Spaghetti falls all over the ground in the left jungle, but it is Cartman that ends up on the top end of that one, and because one more falls for the side of Signs of Life, that's been J-Master, their playmaker, this entire game, the guy who has really been keeping them in this game, finding these opportunities, swinging fights that shouldn't really even be possible to convert in their favor. With him down, it's going to be Fire Giant to the Playmakers. They've got all of the map to work with here, Frog. They've already got that middle bird down, and that's an excellent opportunity for them to utilize a pinch maneuver to go for either one of these side lane Phoenixes. It's so hard to break a base when you have all three of those birds available, but you just get so much more free real estate on account of that excellent tier 2 fight that they had earlier in this game that got them that bird down to begin with. The Playmakers are in a very good spot here to convert off of this Fire Giant. You typically think of a 22, 23, 24-minute Fire Giant being your first step toward victory, but they could very well just jump in head first.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have the lead to do it. 10,000 gold almost sure to hit that mark with these towers going down if they manage that. And the biggest thing, maybe this experience lead. You're not seeing it on all these characters, several level 20s, but a 6 level differential in the support role. Panos is doing his best to try and put on the peel and you know, help out, take some damage, but Flake Slayer has just been unstoppable and unkillable in diving these towers. He's making so much space for them.
And Finmo Phoenix respawns here. Kabani's already in. They gotta go.
Yeah, I thought they would wait a second, but Kabani wasn't even ready to wait for the rotation, and Milt falls immediately as the fight starts. Cartman comes in from the left side. Phoenix and takes down the ADC as well. A shell keeps him alive just barely, and they move like a unit. The gears are turning flawlessly as they all turn on J-Master too. He gets eviscerated in the back line. In the blink of an eye, 3 fall for Signs of Life, and the Titan next on the chopping block. Cryonic doing what he can to try and turn the fight around. He'll fall too, and the game number 1 will go to the Pendragon Playmakers.
Yeah, they'll get Panos one more time on the coffin before they manage to do so, but Pendragon Playmakers do score a third game victory against Signs of Life, and this is not the first time that Signs of Life have dropped a game and then still come back to win the set. So don't count them out just yet, but with the way that the Pendragon Playmakers conducted themselves in that first game, Frog, it's hard to argue against them. They looked so well-oiled. You called them a unit working together at the end of that fight. They certainly did all turn around at the same time, all go on to J-Master. The target prioritization was flawless. Kabani was fearless, diving those structures by himself at times and waiting for the rest of the team to come in. It is so impressive the way they played the map with, again, a very unconventional team comp.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it come through in the stats here as well. 7-1-13 and 1-0-26 are the 2 stat lines I'm looking at, because those tanks for the Playmakers were doing God's work. I mean, they were always in the back line, and it just felt like the boundaries that you normally think of. You're thinking of Smite 101, the wave's going to push under Phoenix. I'm going to have my tank dive right before the wave gets there. We're going to have our carries push in and hit the Phoenix. Like, there's a whole list of things to do when you're supposed to do them in order. And Kabani and Flake Slayer were like, no, I can take like 4 Phoenix shots and I'll just disrupt their entire back line for free. And the fights just looked seamless.
It did, and it was also the early game, I do want to point out, because Milt, we talked about him taking a spill early on. That's not something you can afford to give up if you're Hades. Hades is supposed to be the lane bully who clears the lane very effectively, very safe, doesn't really take a whole lot of deaths over there, and then transfers in with this full damage build and just one-shots your backline. But 1 and 8, man, they did such a good job of just keeping this guy down, preventing that X factor from coming alive in these fights, and just taking him out of the game before it really even started.
Well, that'll do it for us on game number 1. It certainly has to be quite the bounce back for Signs of Life here to try and adapt, but they've got 2 games left to do it. We'll see if they can look for that in picks and bans. Game number 2 when we come back. After a fantastic game number one, Playmakers are up 1-0 in this best of three. And there's a lot on the line. As we discussed, winner of this set not only is going to be able to hold on to their undefeated record, but they're going to move up in a division as well and get even more fierce competition on the other side. I'm still Frog, still joined by Kaizo. And after an action packed game number one, I got to say, I think Signs of Life has a lot of adaptation to do.
Yeah, they do, and they're actually going to swap things over here and go for, instead of keeping the first pick where they got the Maui, which did look very good for them in that first game, they're going to swap things up and go over to Chaos and get the second pick, which, I mean, there was so much unusual stuff picked here, Frog, that I don't know that I would want to necessarily be second pick in this game. Because I typically think of second pick as there are 3 good things available, we want 2 of them. And I couldn't necessarily pick 3 specific things that I would want to grab for myself from that last game. There's so much spice, so much difference in the meta that we're seeing in this game that we're not typically accustomed to. I think that I'd much rather just secure that Maui for myself again.
Well, speaking of that second side and picks and bans, we are ready to jump right in to picks and bans for this game number 2. And I couldn't agree more, right? There's enough spice, enough difference off of the top tier of picks, at least top tier picks of NA that we're used to, that they're changing things up. But I think exactly as Order is banning out, they make room here to ban away a little bit more targeted at the enemy team, right? You can take away this Sun Wukong. You can take away this Sobek if those were really the things giving you trouble. And I don't think it changes your draft ideas as much as if you were pulling off the top of the tier list.
Yeah, and we didn't really see the whole tier list conversation. Like, if Merlin is going unpicked, unbanned until 9th overall pick, you know that there's something a little bit out of the ordinary going on. But at least for the time being, the bans still continue to be quite normal, at least compared to what I'm accustomed to and what you're accustomed to seeing, Frog. They do go ahead and put some attention on the Merlin, which I think is very warranted. Keep in mind, this is Pendragons that are banning these away. So keeping them away from themselves and also making sure that they can grab something instead and not give those over to Signs of Life. But the Danzabar pick, Frog,
Man.
is it's going to be something special if this happens.
Come on, like the Pendragons first picking the opposing ADC away from them after the picks and bans have changed up enough that Soul is not banned anymore. That pick's on the table. Olorun and Jingwei were banned in the second phase last time. Both of those are on the table. Sure enough, though, they first pick the Danzaburou, and it's just gonna be Soul Maui. Why would it ever not be Soul Maui? Right? Like that is. I am in love with this draft, and it's only 2 picks in for Signs of Life. They look much better.
Yeah, and there's the draft homework that they did in taking the second pick overall. Somehow they knew that the Danzaburou would get snatched up from them, and they'd be allowed to get one of the best dual lanes in Smite right now. There's not a whole lot of other ADCs you'd rather have. Maybe you could argue the Freya, but past that, you're pretty much sitting very pretty if you are Signs of Life here on this dual lane. I, again, want to be very clear. The Maui looked very good in the first game. It was a lot of what was actually going right for them in the early and middle stages of that game, along with the Awilish. I like the way that they're going here into game number 2. I think that they give themselves a lot of good tools to come back at this one.
Well, actually, hold that thought, Kaizo. I'm getting word from production that we've actually switched around the draft orders. So the Danzaburou was first pick by Signs of Life. They liked the Danzaburou. They played it last game.
Okay.
They do not ban the Soul away this time around. They end up giving Soul Maui to the other team, the team that really ran away with game number 1. And now I'm not liking the draft as much for Signs of Life. Like, it definitely turns things around a little bit, but at least we get to see some change ups in the other side of things. The Atlas and the Discordia taken now for Signs of Life change things up in the mid lane, change things up in the support role, and a different prioritization. You get your damage characters up first. You maybe hold on to your jungler for a little bit later in the draft. You have a little bit more flexibility.
And that makes a lot more sense for why specifically Signs of Life would want to take away the Agni that was a big problem for them, and also not give away this Merlin if they were planning to grab this Danzavaro so high up. It feels a little bit bad to give away the Soul Maui and to have the Awilish taken away from you, but I do want to point out, Frog, that they did get Atlas, and this is a criminally underrepresented character right now. PBM likes to believe that this is the best support in the game that you can pick for regardless of who's picked or banned otherwise. He uses the Prophetic Cloak very effectively, gets that one stacked up with no problems, can go a full tank build, still have relevant CC and damage on a backliner, very good at shredding down any frontliners with that laser ultimate. This is a very strong pick that they've gotten for themselves, and if you have to give away Maui, I think that you're pretty happy that Atlas is what you get in return.
Yeah, and certainly I think you're not really complaining about just these soul laners, or rather these supports coming through. And you have what looks to be the dual lanes for either side, right? Atlas Danzaburo going to be going up against the Soul Maui if Soul ends up in this ADC role, which maybe I'm already eating my own words as Jing Wei gets hovered and locked in by the Pendragons. A little bit of a surprise, but maybe now we see why they banned this pick away in game number 1.
Yeah, and this is going to be such a scary team for the Pendragons. Not because they necessarily fight the best, they do have very good sustained damage, but the fact that they have the Awilish Maui comp to just pick one guy very effectively and then can rotate over to an objective and double ADC Awilish on the objective is going to take it just about instantly. You have to have incredible vision for slice of or not slice of life, that's an anime genre, for Signs of Life. I'm not a weeb, you're a weeb. Otherwise, these objectives are just going to go flying off the map.
Yeah, no, they definitely are going to be shredding with this double ADC composition. And as these last picks get locked in, I got to tell you, I am loving the draft for the Pendragons. I mean, I'm really not sure if I could love it anymore. If anything, they go back to the same way they were playing in game number 1, and they keep their picks, or if anything, they maybe get better. You get the landfall instead of the pluck. You get the Sun Wukong back in the soul lane. On the other side, though, those changes specifically in the divers, the jungle solo pick, clean up Mulan for Signs of Life. Definitely a switch up in how these fights are going to go for them.
Yeah, Cleo is actually a jungler that we're not seeing as much of as I think we really should be. There was a whole lot of it just before and even a little bit during the play-in tournament, and then it feels like shortly thereafter it fell a little bit out of favor. I'm not really sure what kind of changes inspired that, but she definitely fell a little bit down the tier list in people's eyes, so I'm very excited to see what she's capable of. I think Mulan's in a very good spot right now and something that can fight very effectively into the Sun Wukong and really combat him for not only the clear, but also the ability to sustain and scrap in the lane. I think they got some pretty good picks here, Frog. I think the Signs of Life squad are definitely in a pretty good spot to fight their way back into this one.
Well, we'll see if they can push us to a game number 3 as we jump in to game number 2. Playmakers trying to hold on and finish it in 2. Signs of Life trying to push us even farther. First thing I want to talk about is this start, because I'm sure it existed in game number 1, but I totally missed it. I mean, they bring over the support buff and the ADC buff instead of the XP buff. And hold that thought, getting a quick pause here. But early on, they just skip the XP buff. Maybe that's like you're clearing a little bit quicker, getting the lane a little bit faster. Both dual lanes doing this start.
Yeah, and this is something that I wanted to talk about in game number 1, because there's literally 2 sole things that I've been told these are the things that EU players do. And it's start north of the XP camp in dual lane and build Bloodforge on junglers. And we didn't get to see a Bloodforge jungler, so I'm 1 for 2 on that one. But at least we do get to see this different strat that we're accustomed to seeing in the dual lane. It gives you a lot more ability to get to the lane a lot quicker, makes you a lot less of a target for an early gank just because you get the lane cleared so much faster, so much less damage to have to deal with. And that way you can really start just playing a lot safer. If you go for all 3 camps together, you take so much damage, unless you have just incredible clear potential. But because you go for this alternative start, you don't take as much damage. You're capable of going back to that camp a little bit later on if you want to. It makes it so that you don't have to worry about just getting taken advantage of early on.
Well, we are almost ready to jump back into game, folks, as we are apologizing about that quick pause early on. But yeah, I mean, that start definitely is interesting when it comes to the pressure that both these teams are going to get in the left side of the map, right? They get to dual lane not only a bit earlier, but they potentially get some additional time to brawl. And when we talk about brawling specifically, I am really focusing on these supports, right? We thought it initially was going to be a Soul Maui over on this left hand side, which I would have thought would bring a ton of pressure. Don't get me wrong. But now the Danzaburo and the Jingwei, I'm not feeling as strongly about the 1v1 potential or the 2v2 potential just because of their damage output. But both of these supports are looking to brawl a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, the Atlas is very good at specifically causing issues in the lane. You don't typically have a lot of kill potential early on, but it results in the ADC trading out their health bar with the support. Both of them are going to get very low just from exactly what we're seeing here. Atlas is very comfortable dashing through the wave, running straight for that ADC, and putting on as much damage as possible while trading out that health bar. And this is, I think, Frog, what the point of the whole back camp's neglecting start is from these dual lanes. You can see both junglers immediately head over there, take down their speed buffs, then grab that other XP camp that the dual lane didn't do, getting them a little bit farther ahead. Which makes sense because right about this point, dual lane doesn't need to be level 3.
Link in from Cartman, looking for the mid laner once again. Aggression early on from the junglers. This Dominator just hits everything. I thought that was a wash and he was going to get away. And at the same time, we get action on the other side as well. A solo kill in the solo lane, a 1-for-1 across the map.
And Shard popped in that right lane makes it a lot more easy for Mulan to get that kill. Has that passive cooldown reduction in the kit, and as well as having that horn shard. But hang on, Frog, we got so much more fighting in left.
Still has the dash available, potentially will find the escape here, just barely getting out under that tier 1 tower as J-Master hopes to find the same success with his rotation that Cartman did in the mid lane. But
the Bastions!
Cryonic already back, and Dominator takes down the Bastions before 2 minutes into this game. A little bit extra gold, and they have the pressure on the mid camps as well. Kabani may be looking to turn things around in the solo lane as well. What is happening?
My boy Milt taking down Kabani once again in the solo lane. Meanwhile, left-hand side, J-Master makes another visit but won't be able to get anything from the dual lane. I love to see Milt going down fairly without a whisper in game number 1 and immediately saying, give me something aggressive, give me something I can fight on. Picks up the Mulan, gets 2 solo kills over in the solo lane. So happy with it.
J-Master has Blink and finds the damage. Dominator barely getting into that disapparate. Will look for the dash and perfectly timed to take down the mid laner. Signs of life already showing some more signs of life in this game number 2. And a lot of it is coming from the junglers and from this solo lane. I think you could not have said it better. Already looking for the solo blue invade, but maybe collapsed on this right-hand side. Has the ultimate available, but down to 25% HP. And Cartman is not in range. He can't jump over the wall. And as a result, Milt gets out of there scot-free. Looks like with the blue buff of Sun Wukong as well. A great start once again for the solo lane.
Cartman does manage to take down the opposing blue buff, so Wukong will still be able to grab 1 at least and get a little bit more mana sustained for himself, but it is already a full soul leader now for Milt on this Mulan. Gives him so much more fight potential, and Cryonic is going to have to be a little bit more careful here, Frog. We've kind of talked over a lot of the action in the mid lane, but it has been Dominator on the tower line with no qualms at all for taking down both of those bastions pre 2 minutes and using Cartman's ability to rotate the map very effectively to get a very comfortable lead here. Soul does so well from ahead, especially with this power build, that it looks like Dominator is going to be going as opposed to the more conventional ring build that we typically see on these ADCs. Dominator is going to be a pretty big threat very quickly, and maybe even now as he finishes off that Bancroft's Talon.
Yeah, he does not want to waste any time in getting into these fights. Not even fights, even. He's just satisfied with poking down Cryonic under his tower. But already those bastions taken out, and that's sort of the same idea as, like, what you get a tower in a lane, you're able to rotate a little bit more, you get that freedom, but maybe looking for some more action on the right-hand side. Kabani forced early on into the Somersault Cloud, but J-Master here along with the enemy jungler will not get knocked up there. Could have been dangerous if he had no beads available, but it's right around the time of these blues starting to be thought about, right? About 30 more seconds before those spawn up, and you see the fight continuing as the jump gets forced from Cartman. J-Master's just going to hang out over here on this right-hand side.
And I love this adaptation from J-Master as he's still maybe going for this fight. Frog uses both of the Tearing the Veils, will get Cartman pretty low, but the support is here and gets the grab.
Huge CC to prevent him from going for the wall, and now Cartman jumps over the wall, and a great peel coming through from the Soul Laner. The dash is perfect. Or excuse me, the blink rather will get him out of there just for a second as Dominator comes in to clean up the kill. He may be turned around on, though. The Disapparate keeps him alive a little bit longer, but the slowdown is here from Panos. The beads is good, the lifesteal is good, and Dominator gets out alive, taking a member with him. A great rotation from the mid laner.
And this is what I was trying to say before all of that began and J-Master had that fantastic blink out to preserve his own life. This is the adaptation I wanted to see from Signs of Life. They picked Hades in the first game and didn't enable him at all. He went down 3 times early on in the game and didn't manage to find an impact in that game. They picked another very strong early game character that can be a conventional lane bully in the Mulan, and now they're immediately understanding that with this lead that Milt has, getting those 2 early solo kills, their best investment of their time is fighting around these blue buffs, keeping Kabani out of the game, and making sure that Cartman doesn't get all the farm for free. They're even sacrificing Cryonic in the mid lane if necessary, which it hasn't been up until this point, to allow that to happen, because look at what your duo lane is. It's Danzaburou Jingwei. Nobody's likely to die in a 1v1 in this lane. You can commit all of your attention, all of your resources to the right-hand side of the map, and just make sure that Milt can get off to a much better start in Game 2 than he did in Game 1. It is already looking so much better for Signs of Life.
Yeah, I mean, not only has he not fallen 2 or 3 levels down, which we saw in game number 1, he's even got a level lead, right? Has that Soul Leader online a little bit earlier, more than half of the stacks in favor of him over towards this Soul lane, and that may bode well for some of these more early game rotations if he decides to get involved. But it's Cartman who wants to get involved a little bit earlier. Jump in, and CC is perfect onto Peters, is forced out towards his tier 1 tower, but he'll finish it off with the charge and will find the kill as the action continues in the mid lane. Good dash, good usage of those abilities by J-Master, and we'll find Dominator looking to find the ADC as well. But it's Panos with the cross map ultimate taking that final hit, and it's a 2-for-1 across the map.
God, that's like back in the Call of Duty days when you just throw a tomahawk across the map and hope that it hits somebody, and Panos just landed that right in the chest of Flake Slayer. That is such a feels-good moment for Signs of Life after they managed to lose Peters in the left lane, which isn't great. It is a good rotation over from Cartman, but they're just continuing to play the map so well for Signs of Life. They know Dominator's going to be sitting on tower line all game long. It's Soul with a Bancroft's Talon with the lead initially. Of course she's going to want to stand there and just get as much fight as possible. So J-Master just immediately rotates over, says, all right, we got the huge lead in right lane. will try to transfer it over to the mid lane, gets a lot of good damage onto the Soul, and sets up for that kill as well onto Flake Slayer. It's just a completely different team from what we saw in game number 1.
Yeah, and they don't have a huge lead, but they're certainly using it. On this invade on the left-hand side, will find the purple buff, but hold the rotation. Dominator coming over from the mid lane, in addition to Flake Slayer, will try to slow things down. And as we're talking a lot about Panos here on the support, for as aggressive as he's being, he has not opted to go into that prophetic cloak, which is a little bit interesting to me. If anything, this feels like it's going to slow down his aggression a little bit in the later stages of the game.
In the later stages, yes, and that is the important distinction between the two starts, is Flake Slayer right now, 10 stacks on Prophetic, is not very tanky, as we see a Landfall get the beads off of Cryonic. Flake Slayer's not super tanky right now. It's really just much later on that he'll be tanky, and Cryonic is not gonna last long!
Oh my goodness, I was not expecting that tier 1 dive, but a perfect dive it will be from Cartman, taking up the kill as J-Masters trying to find the 1v1, but a Brooful Feather Step and Dominator comes through with the help. Panos takes down the jungler in trade at the very least, but it is not long for this world if he continues to fight into the 2. Smart decision to back off towards his tier 2 tower. Quick scrap nets them 2 kills and the tier 1 tower, and Soul certainly showing that dominance and structure damage.
Yeah, I was just about to say something real dumb. I was going to say Dominator walked through a tier 1 tower to get to where he was at there. He didn't walk through it, Frog. He just knocked it out of the way to be able to fight behind that green buff. And that's what this Soul is so damn good at, is just auto-attacking whatever's in front of her, be that a god or be that a structure. She takes down middle tier 1 tower that gives Pendragon Playmakers so much more room to play with. There's not a whole lot of safety for Cryonic now, who already in this game, even with the tower, has been having a difficult time finding a safe place to stand. It is going to be much more difficult for them to find safety for this mid lane.
Kabani, I miraculously just walks away without taking any extra damage off that gank. I honestly, and it's opened a spot for this Gold Fury as well. Panos doing his best to take it away, will not do so though. Pendragon Playmakers find the objective. They may even find the support. A good dash cancel takes down Panos over towards the pit, and Peters has stepped up into this as well. A good ultimate though slows things down as a pullback from the landfall may make the mid laner the target, but Peters still getting chased here, and a great taunt is good enough for the peel. Slows things down just enough to keep him alive with double-digit HP, but not if Kabani has anything to say about it. This dash is coming up just in another couple of seconds. He needs one. Oh my god! Just off the mark, out of range. It will be for Kabani. All the while, though, they take down yet another one on the left-hand side, and they'll take down the tier 1 tower as well. The action continues as Kabani may be the one under pressure here, chased a little bit too hard. He'll be the one trade, but it's still a win for the Playmakers.
God, when do you take a breath, Frog? There's just so much going on this map at all times in different parts of the map, and there's no real way to capture all of it. I mean, the entire time that we were watching Kabani dive through onto Peters, the Pendragon Playmakers get another objective. They get the Pyromancer. There's Signs of Life get the Pyromancer. There's more fighting in left lane. They take down tier 1 tower in left. It seems like they have no qualms with just fighting wherever it is on the map, regardless of who's there, how far ahead they are, how far behind they are, what resources are available. Both of these teams are very willing to get involved no matter what. And I just think that's such a good mentality to have for Signs of Life after losing game number 1. You can't just roll over and let the map come to you. You have to make the plays happen. And they have been fighting tooth and nail from the beginning of the game to ensure that that absolutely is the reality of this set right now.
I mean, even after losing that Gold Fury, losing 2, they pick up the Pyromancer. It's still an even game for all intents and purposes. It's 1K in the favor of Pendragon Playmakers, but that's not the determining factor in a fight. And you can see it from these graphs and from this fighting to back towards the speed buff. J-Master using those veils to try and make some space for himself, and it does so successfully. Cryonic with the Apple of Discord hits the support but won't be able to take it on anybody else. Flake Slayer gets over the wall and takes the focus off of his team, burning the beads, though Dominator still under the pressure, and he's doing everything he can to peel and will help the team take down one. But now with the ADC rotation, it may be all left on the table here. Signs of Life take one, take two, take three as they take down the remaining members of Pendragon Playmakers on this right-hand side. Kabani may make 4 and a clean sweep, all but the Jingwei till Signs of Life back in the game.
No fighting at this jungle buff, says Signs of Life, as they show up in force to defend what was a truly cheeky invade from the Pendragon Playmakers. You were just saying they have 1,000 gold in the lead to take that fight with. And that is not at all a big enough lead to take a full team fight at the enemy speed buff and just take it without numbers. You said Danzabara was there. He was there so much further ahead of Jingwei. Jingwei just decided she was going to split push a tower. Vanatix didn't even get to participate in that fight. But the Playmakers were so confident, so willing to take the engagement regardless. It's honestly miraculous that with the positioning of that fight and the way that it started out, they were managing to come out with anything. I thought, frankly, with the way that was going, they were going to end up much further behind, but it's only a 2,000 gold swing, and they're still trying to play aggressive, Frog.
Oni Fury picked up by Peters. All the while, J-Master 1v3ing in the backline. He'll take the ADC as a result. He may get traded out for it, but not if his team has anything to say about it. A 1-for-1 still as they take down Dominator. 2 total in the ground for the Pendragon Playmakers, but now Cartman's come over and is trying to take the 1v3 itself, but a good landfall brings the support away and makes room for Cartman to find another as Peters takes down the second of the fight. It'll just be a 2-for-3 to slow things down and pull them off the Gold Fury, though, and Playmakers end up with more space on that objective as a result.
Man, we gotta breathe, man. We need these teams to just sit down on the bench for just 1 second. Bro, breathing is very important, Frog. You literally have to do it in order to live, and they're not even giving us a chance. They take a huge fight at the speed buff, then fight at their tier 2 tower, and it went on so long that Vanatix is back.
Yeah, Peters has just been left alone by the support, and it will be taken down as Vanatix flies back in to take down the enemy ADC, and they'll pull the Gold Fury as well. They're just letting this one go down. J-Master will be here in time to at least pull them off the objective. Uses one of those ultimates to do so, though, and does have the backup from his support and his mid laner. Vanatix going down fast, and the beads get forced from J-Master as Dominator deals out the damage. But look at the backline as well. Cartman has found a 1v1 mid laner, and the Feather Step closes the door on the life of Cryonic, and it's a chase down from Kabani. If he has anything to say, then J-Master will fall, and he does have anything to say. He's loud in the backline, and the rest of his team is cleaning it up towards the Gold Fury as well. 3 down, and the objective Playmakers battle back.
And Pendragon Playmakers will get the Oni Fury as well, the first real objective that we've seen in the last about 5 consecutive minutes of fighting on this map. Will get them the lead back that they had just about squandered by taking that uncomfortable engagement down at the speed buff, and they really kind of suckered the Signs of Life team into fighting constantly, Frog. Like, they were doing so well with the way that the map was going, but because instead they just continued to fight regardless of the state of the map, regardless of who was nearby, eventually you're going to make a mistake, and Vanatix might have made one over here on the left-hand side.
Beautifully holding out the duration of that ultimate to wait until the rocket expired. Vanatix able to hold on to his life and to his beads over there on the left-hand side as well. Actually, they were already down, so he doesn't have beads, and the enemy team doesn't have a pyromancer anymore, as it will be the Playmakers cleaning that one up. But J-Maker may look for something on the other side. He does have the stealth now partially on the chase here, and is backed up by Panos if they want to continue to dive into the enemy jungle here, but it will be a back off, and I think that's the smart play. Still, nobody gets the runic bomb. They're able to zone him off of that. That's a big deal.
And J-Master is still hunting, though.
Oh,
No
no.
ability to go into the wall, but will unfortunately get spotted out and won't be able to take the 1v1 onto Cartman. So we're down to just about a 1,000 gold lead, Frog, which is significantly different than what we saw previously, where it looked like Signs of Life might have been making their comeback, but after that huge fight on the left-hand side where they got the Oni Fury for the Playmakers, it's starting to look like we're slowing things down enough to, generally speaking, be able to make some of these major macro calls. But I say that as they're mindlessly fighting Kabani again, and it makes it a little bit more unusual to say, but I do think this is finally where we're going to get to breathe at least a little bit as these teams turn their attention toward these objectives and really start to look for their first major claim in this game.
Peters and the support Panos have just found their way into the backline seemingly for free, and Panos has taken the brunt of the damage as a result, forced to use the shell, and now it's the solo laner in, and J-Master finds Cartman for the 1-for-0. The rocket bursts forward and slows down the enemy team. Good shell gets popped, slows down the damage as well, but Vanitix falls for 2, and Flake Slayer may be next on the menu, but it's Dominator for the double kill instead. They take down 3 out of nowhere, and now Kabani, he's chasing the kill. He may fall as a result, but a good beads will at least let Kabani take down the support. Good trade at the very least. They'll take down 4. This may open up the window that we were talking about.
Yeah, and they're going to transfer their attention with only the support left available to this Fire Giant, and the Playmakers had the angle into that fight. The backline got swarmed immediately with the instant transmission from the Chaos team, but just because they had so much ability to fight back, put out so much damage, and will secure the Fire Giant as a backdrop here, take one more kill for their troubles, they just fought back front to back so well. And J-Master impressed in game number 1, Frog, and has made significant plays here in game number 2 as well. I think the major difference for my money is the fact that Milt got such a good lead so far and has been making very good use out of it. And Peters has been in every single one of these fights when it has gone well for them. He's constantly using that uproarious rocket to get to this Jingwei, get on top of Vanitix, and make her uncomfortable, fighting essentially back to front like an assassin. And they have no response so far for the Playmakers. It's been a lot of scrappy fighting where sometimes, you don't set up the fight correctly, so you can't win it, but once they're all getting their feet set and really in position to take these fights, Signs of Life are impressing once again, and now with this Fire Giant, might be able to bounce back in this set and get another set victory where they went down early on 0-1.
Yeah, I mean, I accidentally called him J-Maker earlier, but I think I meant to say Playmaker. I mean, my guy is in the front line consistently, following up on those solo rotations, and you're absolutely right. Milt is just making an infinite amount of space, it feels like. Now with this Fire Giant, it gets even easier, potentially, to get into that backline, and that brings us to the style of fight that we're going to be changing towards, right? We're away from jungle fights. Maybe they can find one if they really want to. That's where the scrappiness has been, but now maybe we're under these towers, right? I mean, still all the tier 2 towers alive for the Pendragon Playmakers. They've focused on the objective, slowed things down with this Fire Giant thus far, so they may find a fight instead, as a good landfall pulls them towards the support, and Flake Slayer may have put himself out to dry here as a dive in the jungle comes through as well. It's Kabani who's taking the fight completely alone and just gives a pick away. That's going to be so much easier on the sieges now for Signs of Life.
Yeah, Kabani just got a bad read on that one and tried to create space where there was no fight, ends up a creek without a paddle, and that'll result in Signs of Life making their way through this tower, Frog. I don't think they're going to be stopping here. This could be a bird for them.
Yeah, they've got the ultimates available. Look for the dive for Mulan to find the space as Panos is taking up the bird right now. A great ultimate, though, separates the front line from the back line, and J-Master takes advantage. Vanatix falls down, and Cartman falls down as well. The Titan may be next in the sights if they have enough. Still 2 tier 2 towers left on the map, though, and that's going to make this a little bit too tanky for them to try and force at the moment. Beads get forced as well. Flake Slayer trying to make some space to force them away from the objective. At the very least, they'll take the bird and a couple of kills. That's definitely going to make enough space for these towers as well.
Yeah, if Panos was a little bit healthier there, they might have been able to look for the end, but because they couldn't stand in front of Dominator, don't get that option. And once again, Frog, Kabani is by himself in this backline, making something happen, and I don't think that he's really got the support to be this far forward, as Signs of Life grabbed the tower and left, now a little bit out of position for the Playmakers. Thought maybe that would have been a chance for them to go a little bit further, but won't end up getting punished for the positioning of the solo laner this time around. And the Playmakers have to make some kind of adaptation here, because J-Master and Milt are making so much good space and getting such good penetration onto Dominator. He's not really able to stand far enough back in these fights to get the damage off consistently. You'd ideally want your soul to be positioned where they can just start hitting these frontliners, whittling down Milt and trying to put some damage onto Panos as well. You have to play front to back with a composition like this, but if you don't have the space to stand, if Vanatix and Dominator can't stand where they need to in order to auto-attack the front line safely, there's not a whole lot of fight potential they have. You gotta shake something up a little bit differently here, because there's no successful dive onto Signs of Life to make up for the fact that Pendragon Playmakers backline is not a safe place to stand.
Well, at the very least, they get the chance now to look for this objective, or at least contest it if they want to. But it's an ultimate. Milt doesn't want to wait at all as he finds a little bit of life there in towards the enemy team. Will try and force a couple back as Flake Slayer finds the landfall on 2. And look at the space. Milt has completely separated the fight, forces the other 4 members away. And it's just the pressure being shoved under the tier 2 tower. Milt finds another. J-Master finds a double, a triple onto the mid laner. Kabani, the only one left alive for the Playmakers. He'll do what he can, but it won't be enough, and it will be a game 3 forced by Signs of Life.
And we could not have seen a better fight to conclude that game, Frog, because that was a microcosm of what this entire late game has been for this game. It has been Signs of Life frontline, Milt all by himself, creating space 1v4 and keeping everybody away from the fight. They take down Flake Slayer without any issues. Peters gets to ult in with the Uproarious Rocket, making contact again with Vanatix on this Jingwei, playing the assassin role, and then J-Master blinks in, nobody around to peel, and he gets all of the damage in the world onto the Pendragon Playmakers backline. Meanwhile, Kabani doing his damnedest by himself, but only one Wukong in your backline is not a sufficient threat. That is exactly how all of those fights went, and we got to see it on full display there to close out the game. That is as perfect as you can draw it up.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's pretty much the clear difference from game 1 to game 2 is just Milt. It's just Milton. He like his stat line isn't even nuts or anything. Like he goes 4-1 and 13. That's a respectable amount of assists. He has a good amount of damage there. He's near top damage, certainly top damage for the tank, right? Like, but he's doing well. But it's the intangibles. It's the amount of space that he creates, and it's how able he is to step up in that front line. Versus last game when we had the behind full damage Hades. Like, I just don't know why we didn't see this from the beginning.
Yeah, they definitely made the successful adaptation here in game number 2. If we don't see more attention paid to Milt early on in the next game, game number 3, I will be very, very surprised, because clearly getting this guy ahead, getting him a lead, and making sure that he's comfortable is a very critical component in the Signs of Life victory plan, as well as making sure that Peters can do his thing on the left-hand side, because my man was rocketing in from the word go and very willing to take the fight to Vanitix. I think that those two key components are the major changes from game number 1 that we saw that made this Signs of Life victory so convincing. J-Master played great on the Awilish. There just wasn't a whole lot of support around him to enable that to really translate into a victory. But with 2 other players stepping up to such a significant degree, I think that that was an excellent game plan for game number 2, and I'm excited to see what they do here in game 3.
Yeah, I can see why they first picked the Duns of Burn now when we
Yeah,
question it on the desk. But
slaps.
we'll see how the adaptations come through in the all deciding game number 3. Stick around after the break. to game number 3. Pendragon Playmakers going up against Signs of Life, and what a set we have had. After running over Signs of Life in game number 1, it felt like Signs of Life put up quite a show in game number 2. They adapt to the Playmakers. They put Milt on a playmaking god over in that soul lane, and they make the difference to push us to an all-deciding game number 3. I'm still Frog, still joined by Kaizo. Could not be more hyped to bring you the action because, as we have said a number of times, and I'm sure it's in the players' heads, there's a lot on the line for this game.
Yeah, there is promotion on the line, and I think that if you're going to be in a position where, as we go into picks and bans here, you want your game 3 draft to look different than games 1 and 2. I think that the Pendragon Playmakers are the ones that have a whole lot more to work with because they have to deal with the fact that Signs of Life are playing aggressive no matter what. I should actually correct myself for what I said in game number 2. I said that the Signs of Life team is playing so much differently than they did in game 1. I'll eat my words on that, Frog. They played confidently and aggressively in the early and mid stages of both of those games, regardless of the state of the game. Even if they were behind, even if the Hades wasn't performing in game number 1, with the Mulan ahead in game number 2, it did not matter. They were looking for opportunities and capitalizing on them and making objective plays happen. So I think that game number 3, I can expect a whole lot more of that from them, and it's really on the Pendragons to make some kind of significant adaptation here.
My cat in the background is like really liking these bands. Like he's meowing really loudly. I don't know if you can hear it, probably not.
Unfortunately, no.
He's really liking these bands, and I think specifically he's looking at the cleanup, and that's not a surprise for me because J Master, the playmaker of game number 2 there, potentially being set up by Milt, but this is a complete switch up. We could talk about the bands if you really want to, but the Athena first pick after being not picked or banned in game 1 or 2 out of left field.
Yeah, a little bit out of left field, and I would be surprised here, Frog, if we don't see this Dan Zabaru again as we go to talk about the Athena, which is one of my personal pet picks. I think that Athena is your best character as a support for making the game happen around you. It is so good at enabling any part of the map at a moment's notice. That Defender of Olympus ultimate is so incredibly strong. Sunder is very good on her for taking down these otherwise incredibly immortal tanks. I think this is such a good pick, and I don't hate at all that they got it first overall, but I mean, that leaves open this Discordia that they picked in game number 2, the Mulan that looked so incredibly strong. It's very scary to give up those 2 picks.
Yeah, and they are not wasting any time getting into the full scope of these picks and bans. They've decided after game 1, game 2, they know what they're looking for. They know what strategy they have locked in. Discordia and Mulan, you mentioned those 2 picks off to a hot start, looking to revamp what they had in game number 2 and try and rely on that similar playstyle once again. As a little bit of a switch up on the order side, as we mentioned, Athena first pick, also going towards that frontline slot in the Cucullin, as well as the Atlas getting locked in, and we see both tanks top 3 picked for both sides, clearly valuing this frontline.
And the salty run back here from Signs of Life, I love it. These are 3 picks that looked incredible for them in that second game. I don't think that I'd want them on just about anything else. The big change here for me is going to be that Cucullin that you mentioned, because the playmaker, make no mistake, in the game that Signs of Life just won, was Milt on this Mulan. And that was largely in part of the fact that Wukong doesn't fight excellently into Mulan. Wukong wants to clear the wave and then not be near a Mulan. This Cucullin is such a different look. It is one that will actually challenge Milt just by nature of the god. It's one that's going to get very aggressive, will try to invade the blue buffs. You're likely to pick an aggressive jungler to pair alongside it and put even more pressure on Milt on the solo lane. They clearly understand that they need to put the focus on the solo lane, or else they risk a repeat performance of game number 2.
Well, speaking of aggressive junglers, that is exactly where Signs of Life go towards. The Pele locked in 4th slot here is a little bit of a different look, right? 3 different junglers for J Master in all 3 games here, and the Pele being prioritized there, as well as the Ravana being hovered on the other side. I'm a little bit surprised by, but I guess it makes sense. Kleena and a Wheelish taken off the board, so they have to look at something else.
Yeah, and I think that Pele is perhaps one that people forgot about. Maybe I'm just salty because I died to a Pele level 2, 100 to 0, and didn't know what I was supposed to do about it last night. That could just be me,
Better.
but I think that I could just be better, but I'm unfortunately not great. And therefore, I just complain about the picks against me because it clearly can't be my fault. And
That's why you're
Pele.
not playing in the Atlantis division, man.
Exactly. So Pele must be a good pick, Frog, and that's the extent of my analysis on that one because I want to talk about this Giannis. Giannis is a character that has to play with the items available to him. There's always the best build, the most optimal build, and then the Giannis build. And it's so much different between those two, and I think he might have a shot here. At the beginning of Season 10, he didn't really get to play because everybody was building the Tablet of Destinies, and that was so incredibly strong you couldn't play anything else. Giannis doesn't use it very well. But now that mid laners are transitioning away from that proc item build, I think Giannis might kind of find a spot for himself.
Yeah, not only away from that proc item, but into items like the Soul Gem, which he's going to benefit a ton from. I think you're absolutely right. He could turn into the X Factor for this game, also bringing a lot of utility to the table on that side as well. Last pick, though, hovering Ishtar for Signs of Life will lock in that Ishtar after the Danzaburo gets taken away. And I'm a little bit surprised they hold on to that pick for last after Peters had such a great game number 2.
I think that you could have potentially grabbed the Danzaburo a lot higher up. Cryonic on the Discordia was a critical piece in the late game, but at least in the early and the mid stages of that one, I didn't really feel the impact of the Discordia. I would perhaps, like you said, maybe prefer to see the Danzaburo picked in that slot, but I think Ishtar is another good adaptation for Peters here. It's one that you can play very aggressively on. It has great scaling into the late game. It will probably be a very good god to fight specifically into Chiron, where you can just kind of dash into him and get a whole bunch of burst damage in a way that he can't super respond to because of how slow training exercises is. I just want Peters in the lane matchup to have a god that he can fight with. And I think Ishtar fits that bill perfectly.
Well, both teams have all 5 gods locked in. The all-deciding Game 3 starts right now. Pendragon Playmakers going back to the order side. Signs of Life still on the right side of your screen. And I think the place I want to start is maybe this Soul lane, right? We avoided it after game number 1 after it was such a stomp, and then so much action early on in game number 2. 2 different solo kills coming from Milt, and you already mentioned the benefits of this change in matchup, the Cullen and what he can potentially bring to the table. And now that we see Cartman going towards the side of the map as well, it could be earlier action than we expect.
Yeah, and he's going to look for the early kill here. I don't think that Milt knows this is going on.
He has no idea. Cartman looking to slow him down. Good CC.
Oh, no way!
The play! The mind games! Oh my god, that's so sick from Milt. He stays alive using the teleport and avoids being flooded on the right-hand side. What a beautiful play.
Look, man, I don't care who wins or loses this game. Judas asked us who the MVP would be at the end, and I am absolutely saying Milt as, hang on, Cartman in the mid lane looking for
no way!
Won't be able to get the frog!
Oh my goodness, J-Master comes in to clean it up. Cartman just absorbs 2 tower shots for free. We are 1 minute. 1 minute into this game, man. J-Master picks up first blood after Cartman tries for first blood in the Soul lane. He tries for first blood in the mid lane, and he ultimately gives away his life.
And this is as good of a start as you can really draw up for Signs of Life here. J-Master has been the driving force of both of these games so far for Signs of Life. Getting him off to an early lead on this Pele is going to be so crucial here, and will actually invade this shield buff alongside Robin's local, but I think it dashes in.
Yeah, Flake Slayer may be looking for a little bit more if he can get out, that is. But the damage is coming through. The shots coming through from Peters. And J-Master off to a hot start. 2-0 is not what I want to see on the enemy Pele. This is already getting dangerous.
God, what a banging game already for Signs of Life. They get Pele off to a 2-0 lead. Milt gets to show off the absolute giga brain that he is on this Mulan with that teleport play. They shut down the early aggression from Cartman, who could have gotten off to an early lead, and now looking for Dominator.
Oh no!
Racing him in the mid lane. Frog, this is incredible stuff for Signs of Life.
J-Master is wasting no time. He fourth picks this Pele. It just waits for the right opportunity to pull out this pocket pick. Oh, another pick that has not been at the top of the leaderboards in season 10, and it's making it look so easy. We're less than 3 minutes in, and he has 100% of the kills, though. We have to think about the long term of the game, right? Ultimately, we have to keep pushing this lead, and Signs of Life really have to keep pushing this lead. It's only 600 gold thus far, and that's not going to be enough to continue the amount of pressure they're having, especially when you're drawing up some relics like that. And that's exactly the type of stuff I'm looking at. As well as J-Master is doing, he can't be everywhere. It has to be from all sides of the map.
Yeah, but you can enable him to have better opportunities on different parts of the map, as Dominator here will at least think about contesting. Instead, it's going to be a blink forward onto Cryonic, who gets very low.
Oh my goodness, they could not have played it better, but now J-Master in on the blink will use the Volcanic Lightning, but it's not enough, and Dominator grabs a double kill. The early shutdown is huge. He was 3-0, so he gets the shutdown gold as well. The Giannis now off to a hot start.
Yeah, and that's disaster perhaps for Signs of Life, who were playing mostly on momentum. Those early kills were incredibly good for J-Master, but now that he's been shut down, answered back by Dominator on this Giannis, takes away a lot of the wind from their sails, and now looking for a play onto Milt. This could be worse.
Oh my goodness, the Defender of Olympus comes through, and it's not even needed. Cartman finds the last hit onto Milt. He'll fall as well. And then the blink of an eye, the kills are evened up across the board, and the gold is evened up across the board. Just goes to show how quickly things can change in this early game. We've seen scrapping in all 3 games thus far, as Vanatix will take a little bit of damage from that ultimate, but I think they were relying on him stepping up a little bit more, and he did not end up doing that. But we've seen so much scrapping on in the early stages of both of these games, and it's going to continue right here. J-Master just looking for the 1v1, and he will find it at the enemy speed buff. He is on a mission. He just takes him down completely for free, and looks like he's going to get out scot-free.
Yeah, Giannis is on the rotation, though. So is the dual lane from the Playmakers. Got to go very wide here to avoid any damage.
He turns around, though, looks for the knockup off the mark, and it's Vanatix who's rotated over from the duo side just to deal that last bit of damage, and will find it with the dash. J-Master trades out jungle for jungle, as once again the scrap leads to not much. Flake Slayer continuing to look for that little bit of damage, but I mean, I don't know, right? I don't know what to say, because we're seeing a ton of this action, right? We're watching kills go down. We've watched it in game 1, we watched it in game 2, and both games it feels like we're just gonna watch it for 20 minutes and then it's gonna be a fire giant fight, and that's gonna be the determining factor, right? In fact, we're just continuing to see the action here onto Peters as the ultimate from Giannis comes through as well, and he gets deleted. Like, what do you got to do something with these kills? They might do it here, though.
Yeah, they're going to go in and grab Flake Slayer, but it's just going to be for Peel, as on the right-hand side, Pele playing aggressive onto Cartman, gets the knockup blinked out, but I'm all over the place, Frog, and they're all over J-Master in this fight, going to force him back out of this one, turn the damage around onto Milt, and look for a little something more as Kabani gets very low diving the tower, but in the end, everybody walks away scot-free.
Well, the Playmakers walk away with a Gold Fury on the left side of the map just for free. Once again, I mean, I was asking them to do something with the lead, and I suppose they do something with the space that they make on the left side. And all of a sudden, it's 2,000 gold in the lead for the Playmakers at less than 7 minutes. into the game. Like I feel like that's pretty significant, and it's come out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's a pretty good lead, make no mistake about it, but with the way that this game is going, Frog, with how much it is impacting my blood pressure, I'm not sure how long you can even hang on to this lead. Don't forget, it was Signs of Life off to the roaring early start with the 3-0 Pele, and that got shut down very early on. I don't think that we can hold on to a lead for more than a couple of minutes here, as now it's going to be Signs of Life once more looking to play aggressive on this Chiron.
Fanatics may be under some pressure here. The Naka beautifully immune by that dash, though, will keep him safe over on that left-hand side. As action trying to be found wherever it can. And once again, the map seems to be being run by these junglers. Cartman given a little bit more pressure over towards the solo side. J-Master has been in all 3 lanes at this point and is no stranger to picking up these kills in the enemy jungler. And I think that's not a surprise at all. It's just a question of like, as we scale a little bit later, which of these junglers is going to continue this impact once we get into the more grouped fights. It's got to be harder and harder to get into the backline for as free as they are right now.
Yeah, and if anybody's going to have an easy time of that, it's got to be the Playmakers, and it's not even necessarily off of the merit of their own jungler, but with the rotation potential from this Athena and the Giannis, which they're actually going to use here in the left lane, dunking down once again onto Peters on this Ishtar. They are all over the map, Frog, making excellent use of this global rotation potential, and I think that's just going to be your difference maker here. They can spread out the map so much more effectively because they have 2 global ultimate abilities, and they're running them pretty much off of cooldown.
Yeah, I mean, he's used the utility beautifully thus far. Dominator looking good on the Honest. And that was a little bit of a question mark when he picked it up, right? I mean, you aren't seeing this pick at the top of the leaderboards as well as the Pele potentially. Once again, EU meta that they're just making use of as J-Master finds his way around the back of the tower, and Dominator is not long for this world, has no chance there to survive, but Psionic may be under some pressure as well. Off the mark though with the ultimate, won't matter, takes down the mid laner in a 1-for-1 trade as Cartman is once again answering the actions of the enemy jungler. We'll look for the action to continue on the left side as another gank coming through. Vanatix is so far up, and Panos, they're just chasing him under the tier 1 tower. What is happening, man? It's just damage everywhere.
It is Armageddon on this map. Nobody is allowed to stay on it for more than a couple of seconds before they get the entire enemy team on top of them. And Frog, as much as this is exciting to watch if you're a fan of the Playmakers or Signs of Life, it is important to draw the distinction between how this game is going, as we see Milt taking another trade with Kabani and will have to get on out of there. At least I would think, as he walks back up and gets answered back by Kabani. There is no safety on this map. It is only death, and that death is favoring the Pendragon Playmakers, not only in that 1v1 on the right-hand side, but also in the game overall. We talked about that 2,000 or so gold lead, now growing to about 2,600. The Gold Fury went down earlier on, now respawning a potential point of contention. And we know how much these teams love to gank the duo lane. I think that we'll be seeing that one go down pretty soon.
Kabani under some pressure still on this right-hand side. He has stayed here after finding the solo lane, or the solo kill rather, but J-Master not enough in the tank to take down the enemy solo laner. And I think finally, nope, I won't say it out loud because of course, naturally, it's going to keep happening. On this right-hand side, Cartman is just forcing the pressure under this enemy tier 1 tower. Off the mark with the ultimate, though, will not find the damage. That opens up the window, though, for the Primal Fury. That Atlas ultimate gets charged. It's being shredded down to 20% HP. Look for the teleport, though, to come through. They're trying to turn the fight. They don't kill the ward, and Kabani gets in for free. The mid laner falls. Panos is so low in the back, he will fall. And Cartman picks up another one, a killing spree for the jungler, and the Gold Fury they thought was theirs. The Pendragon Playmakers come out of nowhere and take another win.
No, man!
All over the place, Signs of Life. Give it away.
And 2,500 gold turns into 5,000 here, as Signs of Life do manage to secure the Pyromancer, but lose that significant fight on the left-hand side. Another major objective goes down in the favor of the Playmakers, and once again, Frog, oh, by the way, don't do math on cast, it's only 4K, not 5K. Once again, Frog, they are making such good use of this global rotation potential. Not only the Athena ult, not only the Giannis ult, also the teleport from Kabani, getting him into that engagement just at the perfect time. Vanitic stalls just long enough with those training exercise pokes to get them off of the objective, to get Kabani in there, and get the rest of the Pendragon Playmakers right where they need to be. Every time Signs of Life are somewhere, it looks good, but they're just outnumbered.
Oh my goodness, Vanitix does it. Oh no, he turns it around. He takes down one. He'll stay alive just a little longer, but J-Master picks up the trade and he will fall as a result. A 2-for-1. That was perfect by Peters. You cannot play that any better, but he just gets shredded down by the Centaurus, and all of a sudden, it's a tier 1 tower for the Playmakers, just like the gold. They're just turning it around.
And all of a sudden is probably the right phrasing there, because they just show up out of nowhere. I mean, who is calculating that 2 seconds after you use those Blades of Retribution from Ishtar, that immediately the Through the Space and Time is going to come through and you're going to be outnumbered again? It is every single time Signs of Life try to make any kind of aggressive play, there is some kind of global potential available from the Pendragon Playmakers to get them into a position to answer back. And now Panos steps a little bit too far forward. Thought that maybe they're going to look for a little something there, because I mean, Frog, it's been fighting all game long. I think you can excuse me for thinking a little bit more fighting would take place.
No, that's ridiculous.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, that's ridiculous. It might be ridiculous.
I think should also apologize to his lane opponent here.
Milt gets soloed for the second time over here on the right-hand side. Typically, we see those solo kills come out pretty early in the game, but it's now 15 minutes in almost, and Kabani's finding the second one. Still holding on for these fights to come through, though. The Gold Fury has fallen a couple of times. You do see that lead onto the Playmakers. Hold that thought, though, as J-Master taking the 1v2 on the ultimate. Will try to find it. Needs one more auto, and just and he doesn't find it. Oh my goodness, the thinnest of margins. The Playmakers take one on the right-hand side, and they're going to take two with the masterful shot. Vanitix and the support doing the work in the enemy jungler. Add Dominator to that list, as well as Cryonic trying to fall down, trying to avoid falling down, rather, as that portal gets placed down. And they're just fighting at the enemy's speed buff. It is incredible the space that Flake Slayer is able to create here, just having no boundaries on the Athena.
And a new challenger approaches here as Milt finds his way into the mid lane, but considering there is no more fighting, it is a wasted rotation, which means that Kabani, this Kukulkan who is 3.5, almost 4 levels up on the Mulan, just gets to continue to free farm. And Frog, if I know anything about this game, they are going to fight him to the death for even being near that tier 2 tower and right.
Yeah, I mean, J-Master certainly has that idea in mind. Volcanic Lightning comes through. The ultimate slows down the chase, though. J-Master looking for that cooldown to come through, and a blink will slow things down, but he's able to dash away, and it won't be enough if Milt is able to find the ultimate. Kabani will fall, but once again, that opens up the objective. Should be a free one, as the Oni Fury is going to fall once again for the Playmakers. That is 3 Gold Furies under the belt of the Pendragon Playmakers, and you can see it come through in the leads. The question is, when are they going to try and force this for something bigger?
Yeah, I don't know, Frog. I'm still trying to keep up with the game itself, and I'm frankly so impressed by the Playmakers' ability to not only keep the pressure on, but also keep track of what's going on in this game. I'm having a hard time just watching it. They're somehow managing to play it and execute to perfection each time. The aggression now punished by Panos. The rotations in by Kabani. It is too much.
It's too much for Panos. It might be too much for Cryonic as well if they keep Jason under the tier 2 tower. Dominator finds the kill. Kabani adds one more to the list, and this teleport will not come through in time to save that tier 1 tower. A 5-man rotation at just 17 minutes into the game. This may open the door for an early Fire Giant as well.
You know, they're going to go ahead and take their talents to the Pyromancer, at least for the time being, but I think that you might be right, Frog. If they realize that they have the numbers, they could probably go for the Fire Giant, but the much safer play, perhaps, is instead to back up and reset before tackling that objective, because with a 9,000 gold lead, all you really have to do is make sure you do not make any additional mistakes in this game. And based on the way they're playing so far, I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot more to come through, because every time they've lost a member past the first couple of minutes of the game, it has been in some kind of trade. It's been them trading out Kabani on the right-hand side to get that Primal Fury. It's been a trade in the mid lane to take a favorable engagement in dual lane. They've really taken the wind out of the sails of Signs of Life, which has been, at least in game number 2, their solo lane and their ADC were so far ahead and so confident in their lanes, they felt like they could do no wrong. So the Pendragon Playmakers take the fight to them and just rotate side to side with the global rotation potential and make sure they can't get comfortable. And because of that, it doesn't look like Signs of Life have a game plan B drafted up. They're going to have to come up with something very quickly, though, because this is getting out of hand.
Yeah, knockup comes through, and the ult will come through just to slow things down, but Flake Slayer is not deterred, and neither is Cartman. They're looking for the chase under the tier 2 tower here, potentially, as Giannis comes through with the space and time, and he brings the solo laner with him. Kabani wastes no time as he dives the enemy team, and Panos trying to make space for his team will also die to Kabani as Milt puts himself right in the face of danger, but he won't be enough to save this tier 2 tower. That will go down. 2 will fall, and they may look for even more. J-Master with the blink tries to find the enemy jungler, but will not have enough, and it's 3 down now as the minion wave push forward. They could look for this Phoenix. They could look for even more kills as Cryonic forced to use both relics and doesn't have the beats for the taunt back in. It is 4 that fall, and it's still 3 on the map somehow. The respawn timers are too low for them to even think about ending the game. They get a Phoenix with no Fire Giant. 19 minutes.
19 minutes, Phoenix down, tier 2 tower down, still 2 members down for Signs of Life as they make their way over to the mid lane. They are going to try to take down this tier 2 tower, Frog, but Signs of Life are here. They might have to be careful here.
Yeah, everybody's respawned except for Cryonic, but a 3-man ultimate pairs with the team. Everybody uses their abilities on the same targets, and it's just not enough to clean up any of the kills. Barely will be able to make it out of there alive, as Dominator may have portaled into the wrong neck of the woods, as J-Master is able to at least trade one back. They defend the tier 2 tower. Somehow, man, I mean, I gotta tell you, that clean play just under the tier 2 tower, the dive there, the triple ultimate, everything being used, if we're 10 minutes forward, everybody dies instantly. GG. There's just not there's not enough damage on the map. They're doing things beyond their means.
Yeah, and they're making it work either way, Frog. That's for damn sure, because they typically, when you see a game like this, 23-9 at 20 minutes, that is an unusually high kill count. I think it's pretty safe to say that. It has quite literally been nothing but fighting from the start of this game. Usually, those games are messy. Those games are fairly close despite the kill count, because you can only fight for so long without actually farming something else. Right. But impressively, the Pendragon Playmakers are 10,000 gold up at this stage, because despite the fact that they're fighting constantly, they're all very clean fights. They're getting a lot of kills without sacrificing too much, and getting these objectives as well.
Looking to continue getting those objectives if they can take this Gold Fury, and they will. find the Gold Fury. One
Teleport.
more added to their tallies, but the teleport coming through absolutely right. Look for Kabani in the back of this fight to try and get in there as Cartman doesn't want to waste any time, and Cryonic is deleted off the map as a through space in time comes through, and Dominator picks up Milt as well. It's 2 down in the blink of an eye, and J-Master isn't even in the fight. He's split pushing the tier 2. At least he gets something, but the window is wide open for the Playmakers.
And they're going to get a portal onto Panos and maybe look at this tier 2 tower, but with this aggressive positioning in the right-hand side of the map, it looks like they understand that Fire Giant is on the cards here, Frog, and that is going to be a very big difference maker in this next fight. If you thought that they were deathballing before, if you thought that they were taking all of these fights so flawlessly, making quick work of Signs of Life, I would hate to be on the receiving end of this squad once they get this Fire Giant under their belts as well. 10,000 gold will turn to about 12,000, maybe 14 once you knock down these last couple of towers. That is an exorbitant lead at 22 minutes into the game, and they are not letting off the gas anytime soon.
That was a good word.
Thank you.
Exorbitant. That was a good pull. Yeah, no, this is it kind of feels like a 99%er. I try not to use that, right? Like I try not to use the word 99%er, and you know, they still have 2 tier 2 hours up. But you're right. You're right. It is a phrase. I try not phrase. Okay, is that all right? Try not to use that phrase, but it really does feel like that, because it's not like Signs of Life has not had chances to fight back into this. They really have. They just, like, with every fight they get, regardless of how it starts, it always seems to end the same way.
And they're going to have to pick one fight here pretty soon, because it is only going to get worse as this game progresses. They've got very aggressive positioning here. J-Master walks in front of everybody and might have been able to go in there, but unfortunately doesn't have the opportunity. And with this left Phoenix respawning, Cucullin waiting in right lane to teleport in, Frog, they could be going for the end here. This Weakened Bird going to be on the cards as perhaps their first effort, but instead, it's going to be J-Master stalling a little bit longer. With how quickly they've played the map, they are certainly slowing down quite a bit here.
Yeah, and I think if they were going to slow down, now would be the time. But J-Master starts the fight, finds the pick onto Dominator, gets traded back instantly, but it's a good Fire Giant for non-Fire Giant player. Unfortunately, you may have taken the wrong fight. Big ults come through, 2-man ults from the Soul Laner and the Jungler, and they take down the support as a result. Panos falls, and Milt may be next if they're looking for the damage, but he's just barely looking to be able to escape. They do get the Phoenix, though, and they will look in towards the Titan room. As they back off, though, they don't have their jungler. Cartman looking towards that middle lane Phoenix as they try to slow things down a little bit. Kabani stuck on this left side of the fight, but he just takes no damage. He's not worried at all, and everybody's focused on him, and they lose another Phoenix for it. These objectives feel so free for the Playmakers.
And they're going to turn their attention to the right-hand tower as well, scoop that one up on their way out, but with these backs channel, doesn't look like they're going to go for the end just yet, Frog. Instead, perhaps reset and give us some time to breathe, which has been scarce and far between in this game as Kabani tries to interrupt that section of sanctity that we perhaps could have had and goes for that.
You're right. I need some time to breathe, Kaizo. Is your chance, right? Firebox, Fire Giants respawn in like 2 minutes. You got a soapbox. You got a soapbox. All right. Is your chance? I'm gonna grab a drink of water. Okay.
Okay.
You got
this. Yeah. You go do that. I'll take care of business here as the Playmakers look to not give me a whole lot of time to do that. Instead, playing very aggressively onto J-Master, going to force out the volcanic lightning through space and time charged as well, and we'll go off there trying to chase her down, but won't be able to find it. That won't stop them just yet. They'll blink for it, and the taunt will get right onto Peters on the ADC. Cryonic falls as well. Frog. Both of the backliners eliminated instantly for Signs of Life, and that could be the game.
All right, I'm back. I took a drink
of water. Recap?
It feels like they may be charging down here in the blink in from Kabani, looking to seal the deal. J-Master forced back, but not in time to make it to the base, and they have every tool in the toolbox to try and close this one out. It's only the tanks left to slow things down, and they do not have enough. Panos will fall for good measure, and the Titan goes down. Pendragon Playmakers advance to Atlantis.
What an incredible game after what was realistically a very close set until that point. I truly did think, Frog, this was going to be a battle to the very end between these two teams. But the Playmakers, I have no idea where this composition came from, but they seem very comfortable running this double global rotation and just spreading the map so incredibly thin, making good use of the numbers advantage everywhere they had it. And I, I'm at a loss for words. It looked flawless. It looked effortless from the Pendragons in Game 3 after what was a spectacularly bad performance, I would say, in game number 2.
Yeah, I think I'm at the same loss. I didn't even get that much time to catch my breath. Like I really thought, and that's really on me for thinking that things were going to slow down for a second. That's ridiculous. I mean, obviously, but they don't waste any time. In fact, it's the other side, Signs of Life, that are trying to find something small. They try to fight back into it. J Master, props to him. It felt like he was doing everything he could
Yep.
in these late game fights. The only member on his team with more than one kill, but it was just dominant from the other side. And I think a huge part of that is just their solo jungle dive up there at the top of the leaderboards. Cartman and Kabani combine for 21, 3, and 19. Right? I mean, it's just you can't. And you add to the rest of the team. It's just what are you doing against that when you get multiple 3-man and 2-man ults that hitting the same 2 and 3 targets consistently from this dive? What, like, how do you fight against that?
I don't know, and Signs of Life clearly do not know either, Frog, as they end up, as you said, falling in 2-to-1 fashion, and definitely Signs of Life from this roster. I know it sounds horrible to use the pun again, Frog, but I really do think that is what I want to get out of this set. They played incredibly well in game number 2, looked very good when they were on the front foot, but with the scrappy, very unusual rotating kind of playstyle that the Pendragons had, it just didn't look like they had an answer for it. It was so vastly different from what they lost to in game number 1. I don't think you can really shake a stick at the fact that they didn't have an adaptation for it during the game. It is such an unusual playstyle to go against that, frankly, I think that any team, even with planning, would likely struggle against.
Now I'm thinking about that whole set. I'm thinking about MVPs, right? It can't get it off my mind. And I think naturally I'm thinking about Kabani, right? Like
Yes.
in game 1, in game 3, he just feels like the difference maker. All props to Flake Slayer. He's sort of my second, and right there next to Kabani. Their front line was unmitigatable. I don't know what you're supposed to do about that other than just try and shred him down when you can. But when your solo laner is single-handedly finding 3 to 4 level leads in these games, like, yes, the one game that they don't win is because he doesn't find a 4 level lead, right? But like, then you find the 4 level lead in the other 2 games. He's standing at the top of the mountain for me, for sure.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that one. My MVP as well is going to be Kabani, and it was definitely a battle of the solo laners here because Milt also performed incredibly well. But if I had to pick a second guy, man, it's got to be Cartman on the Raven because the dive was so incredibly effective in both of those games. The two, it really feels bad to just say Kabani because truly it was Cartman enabling that as well. If Kabani's by himself in those engagements, he does eventually go down, but Cartman was always right place, right time, combining with him and taking down those backliners. There was nowhere that these Signs of Life team could even stand just because the dive was so impactful, the Athena ult over the top. Truly, I think that it could easily be anyone from the side of the Pendragons, at least in the front line. Cartman, Kabani, Flake Slayer, any of them. But if you're going to pick Kabani, I'm definitely going with my man Cartman.
Well, that is going to do it from us, ladies and gentlemen. What a fantastic 3 games we bring you. The Pendragons able to go on to the Atlantis division. Huge win for them, able to stay undefeated throughout those 3 weeks. Congratulations to them. But I've been Frog. I've been joined by Kaizo. Judas in the background doing incredible job on the production in the background. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of the weekend. We will see you next weekend.